Welcome to our presentation. I'll be talking about the WL threat actor and all of the shenanigans that he has been up to that we have been investigating over a few years. So my name is Martijn van den Berk. I'm a threat intelligence analyst. I work for Group IB and I'm based in the Netherlands, working from the Amsterdam office or from home, whichever is more convenient at the time. So this page should be fairly familiar to most people, especially those who've worked with Microsoft products before, a basic Microsoft 365 login screen. Anybody who uses this system, especially in like business context? All right, I see at least, all right, few hands. In that case, I would recommend taking a good look around and just making sure you remember the faces, because I'll be teaching you exactly how to phish these type of accounts using the WL tools that are available. So in case the police wants a sketch, might be handy. So how do we achieve this? With our good friend WL, the threat actor in question. This threat actor has been identified and investigated by Group IB for a few years now. And I'll be discussing the impact he's had, the phishing process, and the criminal business empire that he has created. And in order to do that, I will go through the phishing process, step by step, as is usually done by threat actors. So first we'll start with the preparation phase, the mailing phase, the link staging phase, account compromise, account discovery, and finally the impact. I'll explain what each step is as we get to them. So you'll be able to use these tools to phish people who use the Microsoft 365 platform, and then obviously be caught by us because we are monitoring the ever-living hell out of WL and all of his tools, pages, and everything else. But first, the damages this specific kit has caused. With our monitoring, we have identified over 800 unique phishing domains which use the WL phishing kit. We have found over 56,000 emails, unique emails, being targeted by WL phishing campaigns. Over 8,000 of those have actually led to a compromised account. 40.8% success rate. It may not seem like too great, but a percentage of a great number is still a pretty big number. It's still significant. And we can see here a nice little visual that shows what countries have been targeted and what industries have been targeted. Note specifically the large amount of targets in the United States, 56.9%, but also note the large spread of targets. This is especially evident in the industries where we've seen targets that are multi-billion-dollar corporations, such as AMD, for example, to companies that are your shoe store across the road, from manufacturers to lawyers' offices. A lot of different people have been targeted by a lot of different groups, and this is a clear characteristic of phishing as a service. A clear characteristic of someone who has been selling or renting tools to other groups who have used them for their malicious ends. So where do we start? The WL store. WL store, which you can access or could previously access at well.store, W3LL.store. Now it's unavailable, unfortunately. But this is essentially the Walmart of phishing. You can have anything you want or need related to starting and executing a phishing campaign, you can find in this store, and you can purchase it there. This store has been developed and maintained by WL. It has been active since approximately 2018, so for quite a while. It's been down recently after we published a report on WL. Assume that's correlated. So to access this store, you need to have an account. This account can only be created by referral, so you need to know a guy to get into the store. This is likely done in order to try to weed out infiltrators into the store, like threat analysts, such as I or my colleagues. The different items that are sold in the store can be categorized into 4 different categories. We have tools, emails, infrastructure, and miscellaneous, and you can see the products here as well. Tools are, for example, mailers, the phishing kit itself. Infrastructure, think about compromised web servers where you can host the phishing kit. Think about compromised SMTP servers. This is a characteristic of WL phishing campaigns. They will often use these compromised infrastructure in order to host their tools and to execute their campaigns. This website, unfortunately, has gone offline since the publishing of our report. The guy got spooked and makes sense. But the selling of products has been moved to Telegram bots instead of a publicly facing website, so it's a little bit more covert. Again, you need to be given access to these Telegram bots in order to purchase these tools, so not anyone can do them, I assume with the same purpose as the account referral. And in order to pay for these items, there are the options of using cryptocurrency, very common. There's also the option to use vouchers and even direct wire transfers, which is an interesting choice, not something you see every time with these black market stores. So where do we start? What is the first thing we purchase? We will purchase mailers. We need to send out phishing emails, which is usually the angle taken by phishing campaigns. What is available in the store for us to buy? There are two different options. There is the punny sender, which will set you back about 100 to 180 bucks a month, which is the newer one of the two. There is also the well sender, the older one. It's about 65 to 90 bucks a month. These two tools, they are created with the purpose of sending out massive amounts of emails, phishing emails, in rapid succession to spread as big of a net as possible and try to catch anybody who's foolish enough to interact with them. These tools, they can make use of compromised SMTP servers, which we're also able to purchase from the Well store, very convenient. And the phishing emails as well, the two tools contain a couple of freebie phishing emails that we can use, but we can also purchase additional phishing emails from the Well store as well. So it's all nice and contained, very convenient for us if we want to host a phishing campaign. A couple of features that are shared between the two tools is email headers can be encoded. There is a system called variable substitution. I will talk a little bit about that later. And attachments. In case you use attachments for your phishing campaign, they can be dynamically renamed as the emails are sent out. And these are shared between the two tools. Punny Sender is the newer one between the two. It has a couple of additional features, one of them being its namesake. It can encode email headers using punny code. And there's also a major difference in the languages in which the two tools are created. The Well Sender is created in PHP, as are many of Well's created tools. The Punny Sender, however, is created in Python, and it's wrapped inside of a portable executable, which is quite different from what he usually does. Now, the Well Sender, it is a little bit special because it does do a couple of interesting things as compared to the Punny Sender. First of all, it uses IonCube. Now, IonCube is a legitimate tool that is used to basically obfuscate PHP code. And all of Well's PHP tools use this. In order to decrypt this code, we used a third-party service, easy to use, it's called. Very convenient, which gives us the decrypted PHP code. Another thing that makes Well Sender particularly interesting that not all of Well's tools use is an additional layer of OpenSSL encryption. So after you decode the IonCube encryption, you will be presented with what you see on the screen. You will see that the rest of the code is still OpenSSL encrypted. Now here's actually a little fun fact. I thought it was pretty cute when I realized what it was for. I chuckled a bit at this one. There is, you might be wondering, you see here the OpenSSL encryption, you see the decryption code right here. Like you might think, what is the point of this? Like maybe it's to circumvent some automation, make it a little difficult, but it's trivial to get around this. You can just decrypt this. Well, the tool I mentioned, if you go to Google and you type in IonCube decryptor, the first thing you get is the easy to use service. It's a paid service, but it has a free option. But that free option will only decrypt the first 30 lines of the script. It will only return you the first 30 lines. Now, it just so happens that this code, including a couple of imports that I didn't show here because they're not that interesting, are 30 lines. So if you use the free option, you will only see what you see here. You won't get the actual remainder of the code, which needs to be decrypted. So you're basically forced to either use the paid service or try something yourself, which I thought was pretty clever. You can say many things about Well, but he isn't self-aware, especially with such a decryption key. IonCube is so easy to decode these days. I don't disagree. The goal of this is basically to make reverse engineering harder, obviously, but also what we often see is that phishing kits that are sold are often taken by other threat actors who want to resell them, redistribute them. They will often make very slight changes and then try to pass it off as their own. I assume this is an attempt by WELL in order to prevent this from happening. Now, there are two types of phishing emails, which we can, basically two types of categories that we can put the phishing emails in. This is discussing the emails that are sold by WELL and that are included with the WELL mailers. Obviously, threat actors are free to use whatever phishing email they want. They can think of, the sky's the limit. But there are essentially two kinds that are included. The first is very basic. You see on the right of you, which is or on the left, sorry, which is essentially just an email with a link to the phishing website. Very easy, you click the link, go to the phishing website, easy as pie. The second one is slightly more complicated, and I'll be discussing that more in depth next, which is using an attachment in order to get a victim to a phishing website. What might be interesting, and what some of you may have noticed, may have not noticed, is these specific variables that we can find in one of the emails. These are actually temporary variables, basically. So during runtime, when the phishing emails are being sent out, there is a list of specific variables, some of which are shown here, that will be replaced with the proper variables. For example, we can see here ++well user ++. This variable will actually be replaced at runtime by the name of the user. For example, it will say, "Dear Mr. Bob," instead of something more generic. The goal of this is to make the phishing email seem more believable, seem more real. And you can do this with a variety of variables. These are not all the ones that are available. There are many more of them. There's also a difference between the ones available for punny and well sender. These are available in the report. You can read them there. These are just a sampling of them. And these variables can also be used in any emails created by the threat actors themselves, in case they want to use something else than what is being sold by WELL. So I will now be talking about the email attachments specifically, because they're slightly more complicated. Well, on the surface at least, there's a lot more steps involved in them. You can think of the attachments kind of like an onion. There's a lot of layers to them, and I'll be going through the layers one step at a time. So the first step is that there is Java bytecode it's essentially the attachment is a HTML page with some JavaScript, and the JavaScript is run automatically when you open the attachment. And the first part of this JavaScript is some bytecode, which is essentially deobfuscated using the eval function. After that, there is some URL encoding, so the result of that bytecode is URL encoded code, which is then decoded. After this, another layer of encoding, page 64 encoding, which is then decoded. And we get to something a little more interesting. What it does next, this is one of the newer attachments. Some of the older attachments didn't go this far. But the new attachment actually contacts the phishing website, the place where the phishing kit is hosted. And it will make a call to it requesting a JavaScript payload. So once you have the attachment, you don't have all the code. You need to actually retrieve the interesting bits from the phishing kit itself. So essentially, it just grabs a payload from the phishing kit itself. And what this payload does is, this is a behavior that we've seen across a lot of different phishing attachments that we've seen used by WELL. And it will essentially just have an iframe that covers the entire page. The CSS is set up so it covers the entire page. And it will set the URL of that iframe to be the phishing website. So it looks all legitimate when you open the website. When you open the attachment, it will seem like you're just visiting the site you're supposed to visit. And after that, you are on the phishing website. And there is also a parameter included, which I'll be discussing a little later, where the target email is actually included in the attachment, and that makes the targeting a little easier. But yeah, it's a lot of layers of obfuscation, obviously, to make automatic detection a lot harder. But again, this is just one of the attachments that is shown. Threat actors are free to use their own attachments, and they can also use different attachments sold by WELL. So the next step, link staging, or how to get the victim to the phishing page. Now, this might seem pretty easy on paper. You just add in a link, they go to the phishing site. But automated software will very easily be able to pick out malicious URLs. So link staging is a way to make that process from the phishing page or from the attachment or email to the phishing page a little less obvious. Some of the options you have here is another tool developed by WELL, which is called WELL Redirect. $50 a month, you can get this baby. And it essentially generates a URL for you to include in your email or your attachment, which hopefully won't be detected by the automated detection technology that a company may have. And it also has some options for visitor filtering, for example, bot filtering, and also some statistic visitor monitoring, that sort of thing. Another popular technique that we've seen is Open Redirect. So Open Redirect is basically using a seemingly legitimate URL in order to trick victims into going to a phishing URL. Very notoriously, a lot of Google services have this vulnerability. Here you can see a couple of them, which when clicked, and then phishing URL obviously replaced with the URL for the phishing site, they will actually lead you to the phishing website instead of, as what you might expect, a Google service from these URLs. This is known to Google. They don't want to fix it. It's been brought up many, many times. But there are other services that have problems like this, not just Google. Google is just a very well-known one. Outside of that, there is bit.ly, tiny URL, pretty often used by phishers in order to hide their the final destination of their phishing page. And there's also a service called Replit, which is pretty interesting. It's basically an online code compiler. And we have seen it used in certain phishing campaigns. And it will essentially execute a bit of code in the browser online via their services, and it will lead the victim to the phishing website. But again, all of these are just different options. Threat actors are free to use whatever they can think of. Their imagination can think of anything, they can implement it. Now, next up, the meat and potatoes of the thing is the phishing kit itself, also known as OV6 within the WELL store where you purchase the phishing kit. Here we see a page that is shown for a phishing kit that has recently been set up. You may be able to notice this unique code right here. Well, the system that WELL uses is pretty interesting. It essentially has like a backend which authenticates valid instances of the phishing kit and non-valid instances of the phishing kit. It will use a licensing code, kind of the same way you activate Windows, for example. And this code, once you set up your page, you will be shown this code. You will have to go to the WELL store. You will have to enter this code. The code will be linked to your account. And whenever you access whenever the WELL phishing kit starts, it will send the license code to the WELL backend. And then it will send a confirmation or a denial whether you've activated and actually legitimately purchased it. This is, again, another attempt by WELL to prevent other threat actors from taking the kit, running away, selling it as their own kit. You may also notice, kind of funny, this one, kind of a weird oversight. This here is actually a username of the threat actor who purchased the kit. This is the username of the threat actor on the WELL store. So it's a little bit of an information leakage. I highly doubt that was intended, but yeah, these pages are freely accessible. We monitor for these as well. Strange that it's there, but convenient for us. So yeah, as you can see here, the phishing kit, essentially every time it starts up, every time it does anything, basically, it will send a request to the WELL backend asking, is this license code legitimate? If not, it will show a page that says, hey, this is not legitimate, and the thing will basically not work. There's also a couple of features which rely on the backend, so it's not just that. You can't just rip that out and be fine. But that is essentially the core of why you can't run away with this kit and resell it. So anti-botting, I can go over this pretty quickly because most of the techniques aren't super interesting. There's an HD access, which basically prevents you from accessing folders containing stolen credentials. It's pre-configured, comes with the phishing kit. There's also reCAPTCHA, which can be activated by the threat actors. There is a list of specific user agents which it checks for, a very common thing in phishing kits. And also particular ISPs, a hard-coded list again, which it checks for. And one thing that was kind of interesting is that it actually uses RDP to check for bots. It's kind of weird. I've never seen this in a phishing kit before. But it will open a socket on port 3389, which is the regular, the default RDP port. And if a connection can successfully be made, the visitor is not considered a bot. I'm not sure why. I think it's because bots generally will not have this port open. Kind of odd, kind of interesting. And bots are then rerouted to a randomly selected Wikipedia page, which is pre-configured. Now, this might seem, again, pretty familiar. It's a default Microsoft 365 page. Nothing looks too odd. We don't see anything strange. We enter our email. The phishing kit is actually able to communicate with the Microsoft backend and retrieve specific company details. For example, when you have a company account, a business account that is managed by Microsoft 365, you may have a unique login page, as is seen here, with a specific background, specific logo. The WELL phishing kit can actually retrieve this data from the Microsoft servers using the exact same APIs any other page would, which again is used to trick victims into trying to enter their credential, make it seem more legitimate. But the WELL phishing kit has one additional trick up its sleeve. Now, you may have noticed the absence of me speaking about multi-factor authentication, which is something you can enable with these Microsoft 365 accounts. WELL definitely has noticed that and actually has systems in place in order to also circumvent that. So here we can see our good friend Bob, who is working at some random company who uses Microsoft 365. He logs in. Microsoft logs him in, nothing out of the ordinary. But now our friend Bob here, is kind of a party animal. He likes to party, likes to drink. He went to a party after work, got wasted, came back into work the next day, saw an email in his inbox saying his password was expired. Bob panicked. He has a meeting a little later, wants to be there with his boss, very important stuff. So he clicks the link. A big mistake, because that link was not actually a legitimate link. It will lead to the phishing page, a WELL phishing page. So what happens next is Bob will send his credentials. They'll be captured by the WELL phishing kit. The WELL phishing kit will send it to the Microsoft backend. It will do this in such a way that is just perfectly compliant with Microsoft's login API, so there's no difference between it and a regular call. And then Microsoft will say, sure, buddy. Now, we have got Bob's username and password, but, well, Bob was a little smarter than this. Bob actually enabled multi-factor authentication, thinking he was safe, which is a little safer, but unfortunately, the WELL phishing kit is actually able to also circumvent this. It does this via the WELL backend, which is a server that is not accessible to threat actors. It is managed by WELL. There's no access to it. But the WELL phishing kit will communicate with the WELL backend in order to make multi-factor authentication login requests and steal cookies. So in order to showcase this, Bob here, the WELL phishing kit is detected that he's multi-factor authentication enabled. So the phishing kit asks him, enter your MFA code. And Bob does, as he has asked. The MFA code is sent to the WELL backend. The WELL backend sends it to the Microsoft backend. And the Microsoft doesn't recognize that something is off, so it will actually send the authenticated session cookie to the WELL backend. This is essentially a man-in-the-middle attack, what you see here. And then the cookie is sent to the WELL phishing kit, and then either one or two things happens. Either Bob is logged in as usual in order to mask that something is off, or he is actually routed to a pre-configured page, usually a kind of document, for example, a fake invoice or something. Yeah, that is not good. It's not a good time to be Bob, because his session cookie just got stolen and can now be used by a threat actor in order to log into his account in his stead, which essentially just circumvents the multi-factor authentication. And many phishing kits we see, they will stop at username password. WELL kit is a little more sophisticated than that. Including in this is that threat actors basically don't have to do anything in order to set this up. I could grab a kid from some random college studying software engineering, give him these tools, he could set it up. It's incredibly automated by WELL. It's very easy to use. Here you will see the admin panel, which is actually part of the WELL phishing kit, and you will see here there are some accounts that we stole on one account in this specific instance. But I would like to point your attention to a specific feature that we can, oh no, wait. There's actually a little bit reverse there. The phishing credentials, they are actually stored in a few different ways that communicated back to the threat actor. One of them is they are stored in plain text files kept locally by the phishing kit, pretty standard practice, and they can be read by the admin panel. The second one is these phished credentials can be sent to a specific pre-configured email address, and you can also configure a Telegram bot in order to send it to a specific Telegram channel. Pretty standard stuff we see in phishing kits. Interestingly, the stolen authenticated session cookie is stored in Hazebin. Hazebin, think of it like Google Drive. You can create a document in it. It stores the authenticated session cookie in the document, and then it shares a link to the document with the threat actor. So they can go to the document and use that cookie then if they want to do it manually. Now is actually the admin panel. So first we're greeted with, we want to access these stolen credentials. We can do that via the admin panel. We log in using the license code obtained from the WL store. And here you see the admin panel with the stolen credentials. Now one feature is kind of interesting. We have the auto login feature, which actually sets the cookies in our browser such that we can log into the account as if we are the account user. Microsoft doesn't see anything odd in this. Here's also the invalid account entries, which is also stores, and all visits to the phishing websites. Make sure you use a VPN if you want to access it. Next, we have a tool called Contool. So before, when you accessed a phishing, when you phished an account, you had to manually extract all of the data from it. Contool actually does this for you. It makes use of the Microsoft Azure API in order to communicate with a phished account and retrieve all interesting data from it. For example, it can extract all the emails and the contacts, that sort of thing. It can monitor for emails and send them to a Telegram channel. You basically, your entire, all the data on your Microsoft 365 account can be retrieved by Contool. Now, this tool will set you back about $550 for the first 3 months, and then $200 a month after that. And this is basically the core of WL. It's automation, ease of use. This is his bread and butter. This is what he's selling. Anybody can use this. Super easy to set up. And that is why he is so valuable in the threat actor community. So what can you do with these kind of tools? Well, data theft is one of them. Fake invoice, service impersonation, CEO fraud, malware. These are just a couple of things you can do with a couple of angles you can use in order to advance the phishing campaign. So I'll be going into, let me go into this one actually. So this is an email, phishing email that was sent, which attempts to trick someone sent from an insurance office and attempts to trick a client into changing a bank account to the bank account of the threat actor. This is just one of the things you can use in order to try to steal money or data from a company. And it essentially comes down to social engineering. That's the final stage of that. So here we can see a couple of tools that he has brought out in the WL store and their prices. We estimate he has made approximately $500,000 in profit, but this is a lowball estimate. It's based on cryptocurrency accounts. And there's not included the unknown cryptocurrency accounts and whatever else there may be. So yeah, here's some Yarrow. I think I'm looking at them running out of time, I think. So I'll just skip through these. Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. So here's a report that we've written. If you're interested in this sort of stuff, want to read more about it, check out this thing. You can also check it out later. Yeah, so these are if you have any further questions, I think we won't have time for questions, but if you have any further, there's Very Berry Cherry. Don't ask me how I came up with that one. But it's a Telegram handle. Reach out to me on Telegram or send me an email on m.vandenberg@groupib.com. These slides should also be made available by Virus Bulletin after the presentation. You can see this information there.